There is a specific type of silence that you know very well. It isn't the silence of an empty house or the quiet of a library. It is the silence of you. Let us conduct a small experiment. Think back to the last time you were in a group setting, perhaps a dinner party, a meeting, or even a crowded family gathering. While others were loud, claiming their space, interrupting one another, filling the air with their opinions, what were you doing? You were likely performing the role you have perfected over decades, the observer. You sat there, physically present, but metaphysically blending into the furniture. You nodded politely. You smiled at the right moments. But you felt an overwhelming, almost gravitational pull to remain undetected, to take up as little space as possible. This behavior follows you into the digital world as well. How many times have you typed out a comment, a status update, or a reply to a friend, only to stare at the cursor blinking at the end of the sentence? You look at your own words, and a cold wave of doubt washes over you. You think, does this matter? Will anyone care? Am I just adding noise? And so, you hold down the backspace key. You delete it. You retreat back into the shadows. You convince yourself that your silence is a preference, that you are simply private or introverted. But we both know that isn't the entire truth. You don't just stay quiet because you prefer peace. You stay quiet because somewhere deep in your history, you learned a very painful lesson, that your needs are a burden. You learned that to be safe, you had to be low maintenance. You learned that the only way to be loved was to be invisible. You have likely been told your whole life that you are easygoing, low maintenance, or such a good listener. The world praises you for this. They tell you how mature you are for never causing a scene, but they do not see the cost. They do not see the exhaustion that comes from constantly monitoring the emotional temperature of a room so you can adjust your behavior to keep everyone else calm. You are a master of adaptation. You are a chameleon. But the tragedy of the chameleon is that if it spends too long matching its environment, it forgets its own true color. This is not merely shyness. This is not a personality quirk. This is a survival strategy that you constructed when you were too young to defend yourself in any other way. We call this phenomenon the psychology of the invisible child. And if you are still listening, it is because you are tired of fading away. You are tired of being a ghost in your own life. Stay with me. We are going to deconstruct why you built this cage and how you might finally step out of it. The modern world is obsessed with noise. It rewards the loudest voice in the room. It worships the extrovert, the performer, the one who dominates the conversation. And because you do not fit this mold, society has likely handed you a diagnosis. They call you shy. They call you passive. Perhaps in your darker moments, you have even called yourself cowardly. You look at others who speak so freely, so carelessly, and you wonder, what is wrong with me? Why is my operating system so slow? Let me stop you right there. There is nothing wrong with your operating system. In fact, you are running a much more complex software than those around you. You see, the people who label you as aloof or disengaged are often the ones who are blind to the subtleties of human existence. They navigate the world using only the grossest of senses, listening only to words, seeing only actions. But you are not disengaged. You are hyper-vigilant. When you sit quietly in a room, you are not doing nothing. You are gathering data. You are reading the micro-expressions on a colleague's face that betray their true intentions. You are sensing the shift in atmospheric pressure when a topic of conversation makes someone uncomfortable. You are listening to what is not being said. This is the hidden gift of the invisible child. Because you grew up needing to predict the moods of others to stay safe, you developed a form of emotional radar that is military grade. You became a master psychologist before you even learned long division. However, this gift comes with a heavy tax. The reason you retreat, the reason you feel drained after social interactions is not because you lack stamina. It is because you are processing 10 times the amount of information as everyone else. While others are simply swimming on the surface of the water, splashing around, you are diving deep, feeling the currents, the temperature, and the pressure. No wonder you are exhausted. No wonder you need to withdraw to your sanctuary to recharge. So, let us discard these insults. You are not antisocial. You are selective. You are not hiding. You are preserving your energy in a world that demands to consume it. But we must ask the difficult question. This radar, this hyper-awareness, it served you well when you were a child. It kept you safe. But now, as an adult, is this shield protecting you? Or is it becoming a prison? To answer that, we must look at the blueprint of your soul. We must understand the hidden variables that programmed you to disappear in the first place. We must move beyond the symptoms of your social anxiety and uncover the root cause. We need to identify the hidden variable that has been silently governing your life since you were small enough to hide behind a curtain. In the field of developmental psychology, there is a concept often overshadowed by more dramatic traumas. It is called childhood emotional neglect, or CEN. Do not mistake this for abuse. It is not about what happened to you, the shouting, the hitting, the insults. It is about what failed to happen. It is the absence of validation. It is the silence where a question should have been asked. Imagine a child. Let's call him the good child. This child realized very early on that his parents were overwhelmed. Perhaps they were busy, perhaps they were depressed, or perhaps they were simply emotionally immature. The child, with his high sensitivity, understood a terrifying truth. My parents cannot handle me. He realized that if he expressed anger, sadness, or need, he became a burden. He added weight to a load his parents were already struggling to carry. And because a child's survival depends on the caregiver's stability, he made a subconscious pact with himself. I will be no trouble. I will be self-sufficient. I will make myself small so that they have room to breathe. This is the birth of the invisible child. You did not choose invisibility because you were weak. You chose it because you were sacrificial. You amputated your own needs to preserve the ecosystem of your family. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist, spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to greet the world. For most people, the persona is a thin veil. But for you, your persona became a fortress. You built a persona of the easygoing one, the independent one. You polished this mask until it shone. You wore it so tightly and for so long that you began to believe the mask was your face. You forgot that underneath it there was a real human being who was starving for connection. This explains your exhaustion. Do you know why social interaction feels like labor? Because you are not just interacting, you are acting. You are performing a role that you outgrew 20 years ago. You are still trying to be the good child for a world that is not your parent. So, where does this leave us? You are trapped in a pattern of hiding, yet desperate to be found. It feels like a curse. But if we view this through the lens of alchemy, we see something different. The alchemists believed that before base metal could be turned into gold, it had to undergo a process called nigredo, the blackening. This is a stage of decomposition, of rotting, of total darkness. It is painful. It feels like depression. It feels like the end. But the nigredo is necessary. The old form must break down before the new one can emerge. The pain you are feeling right now, this sharp ache of loneliness, this frustration with your own silence, is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that your persona is cracking. The invisible child served its purpose. It kept you safe when you were helpless. But you are no longer helpless. The armor that once protected you is now suffocating you. The universe is making you uncomfortable because it is trying to force you to take the armor off. You are not suffering because you are flawed. You are suffering because you are undergoing a spiritual molting. You are in the space between who you had to be and who you are. The Stoics would tell us, the obstacle is the way. Your invisibility is not the enemy, it is the path. By understanding why you hid, you can finally understand the value of what you were hiding. You hid a soul that was too vibrant, too sensitive, and too perceptive for your environment to handle. That soul is still there, waiting.
We have spent a lifetime editing ourselves. We have spent decades hitting the backspace key, afraid that our true thoughts would take up too much space. Today, I want to offer you a challenge. It is small, but for us, it is significant. I invite you to look at the comment section below. Do not see it as a public forum, see it as a sanctuary. I want you to share one moment, just one, where you felt unseen. Or perhaps simply write down the words you have always wanted to say, but were too afraid to speak. You do not need to be clever. You do not need to be entertaining. You simply need to exist. Write it down, and this time, do not delete it. Let us witness you.